Hello and welcome. We're going to be taking a look at this Bosch 12-volt cordless planer. It's the model GHO12V-08N. Today on
Kilimanjaro.
In the box, you don't get a lot. You get a vacuum attachment, you get a chip bag, and you get the instruction manual. Now, the instruction manual basically just has not a lot of useful information in it. It does have a little chart, though, that tells you how deep you can go in different depths of woods. Now, this planer will go anywhere from 0 to 40 thousandths on a full width cut in softwood or hardwood. Now, a full width cut for this planer is 2.2 inches. If you want to go above 40 thousandths, you can push this little detent down and then turn it all the way, and that'll let you go to a full 80 thousandths deep in either less than 0.8 inches wide hardwoods or full width in a softwood. So basically it means if you're using your standard 3/4 inch hardwoods, you can go the full depth. Otherwise, you really only want to be going up to the 40 thousandths. So next off, what is a planer? So a planer is basically the power tool version of your standard block plane. It takes a thin sheet of wood off the top of a fairly narrow piece of wood. And then you can do that multiple times to get down to the depth that you want. So this tool also doesn't come with any batteries. Bosch typically sells these as bare tools, but frequently you'll be able to find a sale where you can get the battery as an add-on for free or for a discounted price. Let's get right into making a test cut. I've got a fresh battery installed here. I've got it set to 40 thousandths depth of cut. To start it, you push this little safety over, and then you pull the trigger and it'll go off. So I'm going to just make a full length depth of cut here pretty quickly. So you can see that made pretty quick work of it. Takes off a pretty large amount of material pretty quickly, and it didn't have any trouble with this 3/4 inch piece of cherry material. You'll also notice that I keep putting it down like this. Normally I'd be a little worried about hitting the blade on my work surface or damaging the blade, but it's got this nice little snap up foot here that goes away as you go over the top of the piece of wood. So you can see it didn't have any trouble with that depth of cut. Now I'm going to go a full depth. Once again, this is only 3/4 inch wide. So you can see if I start going too fast there, it does start to slow down and get bogged down a little bit. So let's switch over to a softwood and see how it does there. This is an old 2x4 that I've got laying around, so it is technically a softwood, but the growth rings on it are actually quite tight, so it might struggle a little with this. So you can see if I get going a little too quickly, it does bog down, but you can go pretty good clip before it has any issues with it. Leaves a nice smooth surface, and you can adjust the depth of cut to whatever you want to fit pieces together. You may have noticed that this makes a ton of chips. It's got a little diverter on this front here. Now this just slides in and out, and you can put it on the other side if you want, and that lets you decide which side they're going to spray on. The problem though, and all three of this has this, is that sometimes the chips will miss the diverter and smack in your hand. And they're coming off pretty quickly, and it stings a little, and it's a little surprising, which is not great when you're trying to keep a nice perfect cut on here. So I thought that this would work a lot better here, this little chip bag. It just slides right in and then clips on the other side. The problem though is the chips build up in this area very quickly, and then it gets clogged and the whole thing doesn't work. So that doesn't work very well at all. This vacuum hose attachment is probably a lot better. However, it doesn't fit on a standard 1.25" vacuum hose. It doesn't stay on there. It does fit on the Festool. This is the 36mm hose here, so it does stay on the end of that. The bigger size in here is sized for a 45mm hose. I don't think it would stay on an 1.5" vacuum hose though either. So this is kind of disappointing. Of course, you can always throw some duct tape on there or something like that. Not that big a deal. The next problem with this is it leaves a really nice surface if you take your time and keep it perfectly straight and level, and are very careful to not hold it too far forward at the end. If you hold it too far forward at the end, when this front piece of it gets off the workpiece, it'll dive down and put a huge divot in it. It's not too big a deal until it happens on your final pass and kind of ruins your workpiece. It's also pretty tricky to keep this moving at a constant rate and keeping it perpendicular to your front here. I found that I ended up kind of pushing it down a little bit, and I would get a sloped surface frequently, which is not great if you're trying to use it for a joiner. It does have one neat feature here. There's a little groove here, so you can hold it on the side here to make a 45-degree transfer, and that works really well. It's got one other feature here. Let me set that up and I'll show you that. The planer will also cut rabbets on the side of a board, so I'm going to show you how to do that. Normally I would clamp another board here to act as a straight edge. I'm just going to freehand it to show you how it works. So it's got a little flap on the side that normally protects the blade and drum so your fingers don't get in there, but that'll go up as I'm cutting along, and it'll cut a nice rabbet on the side here. Okay, so you can see it cut a nice little groove there. Now you can make however many passes you want to make that whatever depth that you want. I actually like doing it this way a lot better than using a router. It makes a nice smooth cut. It's not taking a huge amount of material off in one pass, and it goes pretty quickly. The planer has a single double-sided blade down here. There's 2 screws that hold it in, so when you need to change it, you can turn it around, flip it over, and get a fresh cutting side. Conveniently, in the handle here, there's a wrench to do that. There's also, very nicely, a spare blade that's in here. So that's great because these blades are a little bit hard to find. I'm sure you can get them online, but I haven't seen them at the local Lowe's or Home Depot. Those are the good things about the planer. Now kind of the bad things. The first and kind of the biggest one that irritates me is the ergonomics on it. Your standard block plane here has an upright handle. You hold it like this. Very comfortable, and of course this is something that's been come to grips over the last couple hundred years. This one, for some reason, they decided that instead of holding it like this, you're going to hold it like this. This is very uncomfortable, particularly because you've got to hold the trigger down that's in the front of this the whole time you're using it. So I found that if I hold the trigger down with a spring clamp, then I can use it from the back. It's actually quite comfortable, but not great for if you're going to be making multiple passes. Now, of course, the other thing is most of the time with this, you're not going to be making a lot of passes. I tried using it to flatten out a whole board. That just didn't really work. I kept getting grooves cut in it, and I couldn't get a nice, even, flat surface. Now, normally if you're going to do that with a block plane, you'd be using a bigger one. Then this one's standard here, and this is really too short to be doing that anyway, but I kind of was hoping you'd be able to do that. It is great for putting nice smooth surfaces on here. It's particularly great if you want to put a taper on them. The problem with that is that you can also put a taper on it inadvertently. So if you're trying to use this as a joiner where you want to glue this to another matching board, you can't really do that real well, or at least I wasn't able to. Maybe if you had some more skill you could, but I always got a little bit of a taper, a little bit of a wave in here. Not enough that it would matter if it was like something like a door that you were trying to fit, but when you're trying to join it to another board, a little bit of a gap is going to be a problem. So maybe with some more practice you'd be able to get that straight, but I found that it wasn't particularly useful. Now the big question, is it worth getting? So this is usually $160, sometimes you can get it with a free battery. So if you've already got the Bosch tools, it's not super expensive. However, it is a pretty specialized tool. It's really only useful for kind of tapering a board or making it a little bit thinner. Great for fitting doors and frames, stuff like that. I also thought it was pretty useful for making rabbets, but there's lots of other ways to do that that might be a little bit easier. It kind of depends on what other tools you have. I was disappointed that I wasn't able to use it as like a joiner. Would have been really handy for that if you've got a small shop. Also disappointed that you couldn't use it for a planer, even kind of in a pinch kind of thing. So it's a pretty specialized tool. If that's really what you want, is something to help you fit doors, I think it works great. It is also quite small, so if you have a mobile shop, it may come in pretty handy, and you can tuck it away in the back and only use it when you need it. That's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching.